Welcome to Vuk Talks, the show that speaks to education, health, entrepreneurship, and so much more.
Welcome, Zanzi, to an amplifying episode of Vuk Talks. I'm your host, Mmabatho, and today in studio we have a personal leadership and coach, Mmabatho. Mmabatho, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
How are you doing today?
I am grateful to be alive.
You're grateful to be alive. Okay. Mmabatho, I think your career is very unique. You are an entrepreneurship coach. What motivated you and inspired you to start something like this?
So I do multiple things outside of trying to help other people really establish what it is they want to do in entrepreneurship. I am an entrepreneur myself. I've got a podcast called Conscious Conversations, which is focused on bringing people together so we can form a community of practice that is grounded in healing, in personal expansion, and in just being present, or as some people like to call it, being more aware, being more conscious of who you are and how you are in the world, and what your impact is in the world. I realized that particularly because for us as Black people, we have been deliberately excluded from economic participation over the years with our experience with colonization and apartheid. Yeah. I find that many young Black people tend to not know what it is they want to do with their lives. And those that do go into entrepreneurship, they have the misconception that through entrepreneurship you can become super wealthy, and they don't really think about what it is they are being called to do in this life and how them being alive can be useful to their communities, to themselves, and to the greater whole. So that is why I like helping people.
So then you talk about a purpose. What I got from what you just said is a sense of purpose. Why do you think it's so important to people to know their purpose in life?
Because if you don't know your purpose, somebody else will get you to live their purpose. So it's important to know who you are and why you do things, so that we are not only motivated by money. I'm a very spiritual person, so everything I do is grounded within my spirituality. And so I think most people generally know that there's this verse in the Bible that says, the love of money is the root of all evil.
Yes.
So if our motivation behind doing things is always money, then from an ethical perspective, people are often caught wanting, because a lot of the time, excessive money is usually made by screwing other people over.
So then, what are the typical problems that your clients run into? Because obviously you have different people, different backgrounds. Some people are motivated to create a legacy. Some people are motivated by money. What's that common thing that is a problem to all of them?
I think people want a better life a lot of the time. However, I think many people, especially young Black people, are not really certain of what that better life looks like or what it means. And so many people are motivated by the glossiness of what success is framed as, and I think there's more to success than just a German car or living in a particular estate or buying as many young Black women seem to like. So I find the common factor being people not being sure what they're good at. And so when they get into entrepreneurship, they become they're easily moved, or they become very uncertain about how they ought to be doing things, because their main motivation for starting anyway is a bit sketchy.
Then how do people find out what they're good at?
That's a very good question. And I think it is unfortunate that for us, particularly as Black people, we do not get enough time to get to know ourselves. Because a lot of the time our life is based on just trying to get by, just trying to make sure that you have a roof over your head, that you're eating, that you have decent clothes. And so those kind of things are things the system, the capitalist system, the colonial system has ensured that they use to compress time for Black people. So Black people generally don't have space in their lives to dream, to think about beyond month end.
Yeah.
And that is a problem, because it obviously causes people to not really have a better sense of what they're good at and what they want to contribute to the world. I think we've all been born to contribute to becoming better people ourselves, but to also uplifting others as we grow, right? I even forgot what your question was.
Yeah.
It's okay.
The question was, how do people really find out what they're good at? Because you do say that every day, you know, and stuff like that. So how do people get to the point where they realize, okay, sharp, I'm good at doing this, so I can pursue this?
I think people need to read. I think reading is one of those things that the system cannot control, right? About how you spend your time. What do you do with your time? Do you spend your time trying to explore who you are? I think education is also another vehicle that could be used to help people identify who they are outside of external influences. But education in its current form in South Africa and in the better part of the world is not geared to help people get to understand themselves better, but it is geared to ensure that people become servants to the system.
Yeah.
So many young people, they go to matric, they go to university, and people mostly look at which job will get me the most upward mobility.
Yeah.
So which job will make sure that I'm able to earn X amount of money. And I think that is a very flawed way of looking at what an education is, because education is supposed to help us think broadly, not only about what will make you the quickest money. I think one of the other ways we can get to know our purpose is having a deeper relationship with yourself. And that is obviously influenced by what you do with your spare time, or how much you prioritize having time to yourself. How do you get to determine what you really like, as opposed to what you have been influenced to like because you grew up in a particular environment with people who already had their belief systems, people who already had their own limitations, who often tend to project it onto other people to say, no, you're not going to get there, do this. This. And so that becomes the kind of mindset that most people carry into their adulthood, never really getting to find out what they're good at and what they've been born to do. Because in the African context, African people have always believed that each child that is born into a family, into the community, has got a very specific gift to share with the world. And so understanding who you are will help you understand what you're good at and what your purpose is, right? And a lot of the time, that requires us to go back. Just pause a little bit and go back and imamele. Yes.
Then, Waitsi, you talked about how we are born into a family and into a community. And like you said, most of the people who came before us had limitations due to colonialism and stuff like that. How do I... Obviously, we have limitations in the Black community. doctor, lawyer, engineer, how do I say if I'm like gifted as a singer or as an actress? How do I ask the community who don't believe in things like acting, poetry to be able to support me? Because it's so easy to say I want to be a singer, but if you don't have support, it makes that journey a lot difficult. So how can you help a person who doesn't have that much support navigate that journey?
I found through my personal experience, right, the communities that I wanted and I did not have growing up, I've had to create myself, you know. So that also, or having an attitude like that to say the gap that you see in the community, maybe it is your responsibility to close that gap. So how can you be more vocal about a need that you have, and you realize that your community is not structured in such a way to provide for that need. So that is also where entrepreneurship comes in, right? Identifying a gap. So even in terms of community, even in terms of support system, we are supposed to create the things we find are missing in our communities. And that is what agency is, right? Seeing that there's a problem and doing something about that problem and not waiting for somebody else to fix it for you. I think post 1990, 1994, one of the most damaging things the government did is to say to people, we are going to solve your problems. I think that takes away from a sense of responsibility, personal responsibility for our community and for what we want to see, right? So how can you be an agent of change? If you feel like you don't have a supportive community, then you create that community.
Okay. Then, you know, emotional intelligence hasn't always been present in our households because the roles are very, I'm the head of the house, da 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 da. What is emotional intelligence and how important is it for people in the community and even entrepreneurs?
Sure. And I mean that emotional intelligence, as you call it, stems from, or lack thereof, stems from our relationship and our experiences with subjugation and oppression, right? So you can imagine our parents who lived through apartheid and colonization, what it must have been like for them to live under such severe oppression. Imagine being a 45-year-old man, having to leave your house and having to go be a boy to a guy who is younger than you, you know, and they can call you whatever they want to call you. They can do whatever basically to you, and you do not have or you are not seen as human enough to be able to say, no, I actually don't like how you're speaking to me or how you're treating me. So our people have suffered very deeply, very deep wounds. And so as the youth of 2024, we need to be cognizant of that fact, right? And so when we deal with some of the things that happen in our families and in our communities, we need to be aware, keep that at the back of our minds to say people are wounded, right? Although it does not take away the personal responsibility for our healing, right? What has happened to Black people is not our fault, but we have a responsibility to become who we believe we can be, right? And so there's always that. I think as young people, we need to be more vocal about the kind of lives and communities and family structures we want. So when a person says, I care about you in your family, what does care mean, right? And when I, as a person who is involved in community, what does care mean for you? Because you can address an ill, something wrong that is happening without being shameful about it, without being mean about it. So there are different ways of handling some of these things, even within our families, that do not necessarily mean that we are part of the toxicity, you know, or the illness. So how do you step back a little bit from the situation and see the woundedness, the fear, the miseducation, the lack of emotional intelligence in other people?
But then how do you learn how to be emotionally intelligent? Because it's not it's not natural for all of us to,
It is. We have just been denatured. So people have been separated from their true selves. I think all human beings, literally all human beings at the core, we are loving beings. We love being loved. We loved being nurtured. We love being cared for. So anything that is opposite of that, that is abnormal, although it has been normalized, right? It's often a defense mechanism. So people pick up these behaviors as a way of surviving, as a way of defending themselves. And sometimes it goes a bit overboard. But that is what it is. We are born very intelligent. We are born knowing love. And our life experiences and socialization remove that by enforcing fear, insecurity, scarcity. So many people think I need to take from her in order to be okay. That is abnormal. It's not normal.
Yeah. So then you launched a podcast. And for me, I want to know how important are conversations in society, because like you said, we're not given free time to actually talk and learn and connect. How important is that connection, communicating and engaging?
It is incredibly important, not only for today, but for the future. So imagine your grandchildren. You prioritizing dealing with your baggage now has an impact on the future of your grandchildren. So that is how important you are. And that is how important how you live your life and the values you espouse are important, because they are going to influence the future. I forgot your question.
My question is, how important are conversations in society?
So we cannot heal what we do not acknowledge. And you cannot acknowledge something without talking about it, right? And so that for me is a simple formula. What we do not talk about, it festers. It creates little other monsters, right? So we need to prioritize talking instead of Mgruvo. How about a girls get together, on a Friday evening and just talk about what does not feel good about your life experiences, about things that are challenging to you. You're going to find that somebody else is probably struggling with the same sort of like emotional baggage, but they just don't know who to speak to. So sometimes by starting the conversation, you're actually giving somebody else courage to open up as well.
So then, as an entrepreneur, I'm sure you've encountered many situations that gave you lessons. What are those lessons that you wish you have learned sooner in your life?
That capitalism, it is what the colonizer has used to keep black people enslaved. And that we have got more agency as black people than we realize. You look at South Africa, just the population, there's more black people than there are white people. And yet black people continue to be the poorest and most underserviced communities, right? That is by design. So the colonizers made sure of that, right? However, I think the day black people wake up to their power, right? Even if every month your earning amount is 1,000 rands, you get to decide where you spend that 1,000 rands, right? But a lot of the time, we are not very conscious about where we spend our money. So that's one of the first things I would suggest to black people, that just evaluate yourself. Just evaluate yourself every day. How do you make your decisions, and who do your decisions actually benefit? and then we'll get to see that we've got our power in our hands, and we are giving it away every day through our choices of consumption. You look at alcohol manufacturers or producers, they are white-owned company and mostly multinationals. You look at the cars that we are driving, they are not manufactured in South Africa. They are owned by white companies that are multinationals. You look at the food we eat, right? Many people, as soon as mobility is upward, they want to shop at particular shops that are importing food from Israel. And we know what Israel stands for and what Israel is doing. So we are not very conscious of the things that we are doing. The production of plastic, we are not the producers of plastic, you know, and yet we use plastic every day of our lives. How about you get a local seamstress to make your clothes? You know, that would be more personal, right? You would be supporting a local entrepreneur, right? You'd be creating employment even within your community. But we determined to shop at specific European outlets because maybe it's also a status symbol. Paper bag. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we need to be intentional and very reflective about our choices, what we do, why we do the things we do, and who it is serving.
And how important are good choices? Actually, what is a good and a bad choice? Because earlier you had told me that there's no bad question or wrong question.
I think I don't like to be prescriptive in terms of how people should make their choices. But we all know what feels good. We all know what feels bad, right? And I think what feels good is usually aligned with love, with more life, with care, which is who we are inherently. What feels bad or what is bad, it doesn't feel nice. You can imagine or recall when you've had an argument with a person or you were mean to a person. It doesn't sit nice in your body, right? But you were doing it to someone else. But it doesn't feel nice to your body, right? And sometimes you even have a guilty conscience because we were not designed to be horrible towards each other or to do things that are not encouraging growth or more life. So I would say if you're about to make a decision, you think good decision, bad decision, look at what will bring more life. Look at what will bring more open communication. Look at what will bring more things that are nice feelings. You know, I think that is conscious, you know, and that is how God speaks to us usually. What feels nice inside of you.
Then what advice would you give to an aspiring entrepreneur?
My advice would be know yourself. Know yourself and understand why you want the things you want and who is setting the agenda for you, because that will determine the kind of business solution you're coming up with and who it is serving. Underneath that, Black people currently are facing a lot of problems. So when we think about business, right, my master's degree was around women's social entrepreneurship. We have so many problems in Africa. So can social entrepreneurship be something we focus on as young people who want to change the conditions of our lives? How can social entrepreneurship be leading the conversation of entrepreneurship? How do we become more involved in changing the conditions of our people? How do we become more purposeful about our lives, right? Because if you are purposeful about your life, whatever you do that is entrepreneurial will come from that, will be inspired by you wanting to be purposeful.
Then what other tips can you give to us that have helped you grow your audience, the podcast, the how?
Authenticity, just being myself, because there's nobody that can be Mmabatho Montse. So not trying to be like anybody else other than myself, but of course remembering that this myself has also been conditioned by the system, right? So whilst I'm aware of that, what kind of work am I doing to really deeply connect with the true Mmabatho Montse, not the one who has been colonized and recovering from that colonization.
Okay. Then do you have any social media handles or anywhere we can watch your podcast?
Yes, my podcast is available on all major podcast platforms. It's also on YouTube. Our YouTube channel is Conscious Conversations with Mmabatho Montse. That is what is also called on other podcast platforms. And then I also have a website. It is montsem.com, montsm.com. And my Instagram handle is Miss Montse M.
What advice would you give to any young person who's still discovering themselves and is in the midst of having to make very tough life decisions as a closing from you?
The best thing you can ever do is to discover yourself. So carry on discovering yourself and be brutally honest with yourself about yourself.
Thank you, Mmabatho. Zanzi, always discover yourself, find yourself. Life is not only about hustling and bustling. Sometimes you really need to discover yourself. So thank you for watching yet another Amplifying episode, and I'll catch you next week.